Hallelujah. Good evening, good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are, and whomever you are. Welcome to this channel, Voice in the Wilderness. Welcome to this teaching. Welcome to this world, if you will. Today we're going to continue in the topic of are you in or are you out? Real intense topic, real topic with some real depth. And as usual, we like to go back and we like to dig, okay? This is part of who we are in this ministry. People who dig deep, people who go back. It's like tilling the ground all over again, even though we till it just last week. Week before last, last year, if farmers who plant crops, the ground is continually being tilled to turn things up, to unearth things, to get rid of the bad, and to foster and to harvest and to harness the good. And it's the same principle we operate with here at Handwriting of Yehovah Ministries and Voice in the Wilderness. We're going to go back into Genesis 3. We're going to go back there and we're going to unearth some things. We talked about the last time. We talked about how the man listened, and you have to understand this. God said to the man in Genesis 3 and 17, because you have listened to the voice of your wife. And we talked about that. And it's not that God is not saying, and you married men out there and married women out there, God is not saying that you shouldn't listen to your wife. That's not what he's saying. But when it comes to what God says and what man says, you, me, we have to make that distinction, and we have to make the correct perception, and we have to follow the right path. So if the woman says to the man something that's contrary to what God says, the man has to decide. He has to make that decision. Do I listen to her because she's my wife? I love her. She's the mother of my kids and all that. Do I listen to her? Do I take her advice? Or do I disregard her advice? Because what God says holds preeminence in my life, in your life. Right? See, because ultimately, God desires obedience. He desires mercy. He desires you to be willing to obey him before anybody else. Because remember, what's the first commandment? What is the very first commandment? Thou shalt have nobody before me. No other gods. Nobody before me. That's the very first commandment. Thou, you, me, shall have nobody before him. So he comes first. So we think about what he wants first. We think about what he says first. And then, even the book of Proverbs says, in a multitude of counsel there is safety. So it is good for us to seek advice. It is good for us to hear other people's input into whatever it is we may be looking at, whatever it is we wanted to make a decision on. But ultimately, the pathway of that final decision must be God what? Must be towards what God says. because what he says is much more important than what anybody else says. And so when he makes that point, and just let me just say this here parenthetically. When we look out into the world via the news, via social media, and I'm not on social media. I don't like social media, and probably not going to ever be on social media. Right? It's not my thing. Okay? And you might say, well, hey, but you on YouTube, you on a podcast, you're doing this video recording for social media, but that's just, hey, you gotta do something. And this is the extent of what I want to do. But as far as Twitter and Facebook, and I was on Facebook like years and years and years and years ago, I was like, I'm done. It takes too much time, too much effort. You know, you ought to keep up with all that. And most of the stuff is just junk and garbage and foolishness. Anyway, when you look out at the world, when you look out at what's happening, when you look at people right next to you, in your workplace, in your home, in your neighborhood, in your city, in your county, when you look outward, what do you see? I can tell you what I see. I see people who don't care about God. I'm telling you. People do not care about what God says. You know what's the preeminent idea out there? Is we in control. It's my life. It's my body. You know, my body, my choice. It's my life. It's my idea. It's my thought. It's my choice. It's my decision. It's my life. It's my future. And you hear that permeating through society. All the so-called scholars, all the so-called brilliant people out there, all the so-called motivational speakers, you in charge of your life, you in charge of your future. You know, follow your dream and all these things. And if you think about it in isolation, if you think about it in a little bubble, sounds awesome, sounds good. But when you look at it in a big picture, when you look at it in the way God looks at things, is it your life, really? Is it your choice, really? Is it your decision? Did you make that decision, or were you influenced into making that decision? Did you make that decision, or is the idea of becoming rich cause you to make that decision? Did you make that decision, or are you being influenced? Are you being forced? Are you being challenged, if you will? Are you being put in a position, a dare, if you will? And these are principles that permeate the world. These are principles that permeate human thought. So when we look at things from the human perspective, a lot of the things we say sounds awesome. But when you bring them under the umbrella of the Father, when you bring them under the umbrella of God, how do they measure up? Do they sink or do they float? Do they point towards God or do they point away from God? Do they run towards who He is, or do they run away from who He is? And so we have to understand If you believe in God, if you say, I believe in God, well, your belief system, your thoughts, your ideas, everything has to come under the auspices of God, of Yehovah, of Him, of His Word. Why else does the writer, who said it? Paul, I think it is, in Ephesians. Take every thought captive and bring it under subjection to Yeshua the Messiah. Bring it under subjection. Take every thought captive. That's an interesting idea. How do you take a thought captive? How do you take a thought captive? Do you take the thought captive, or does the thought hold you captive? Huh? Think about that for a moment, people. Because if there is a possibility, if there is a chance that we can count the number of thoughts that come at us on a daily basis. Let's not even think about a day. Let's just think about 5 minutes. If we can count the number of thoughts that come to us in a small period of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, maybe an hour, if we can count them, we might find that in some cases, there are hundreds of thoughts that just bombard you at any given moment in time. Much less in a day, in a 24-hour span. And remember, in that 24 hours, you're working, you're eating, you're sleeping, you're bathing, you're going to the bathroom, you're doing a plethora of things. You're having conversations. So you are everywhere and anywhere. Think about how many thoughts come at you. Can we, with 100% certainty, with a great certainty, say that all our thoughts, all the thoughts that come at us are Godward, are thoughts towards God? I don't think so. But it is incumbent upon us. We must make an effort to parry these thoughts and to, what's the word? Partition them off. Cordon them off. Block them off. Take them captive. Make sure they are held captive. If you want to examine a thought, you can't examine a thought with the thought running wild. No, you can't. You have no hold of that thought, and that thought might drive you to do things. To take a thought captive, you have to hold on to it and think about it, and look at it and examine it in every aspect of who you are. And what did Paul say? Bring it under submission. Is this a God thought, or is this a man thought? Like I said, we hear these things. It's your life. It's your body. Your rights. Your life. Follow your dream. And so from the human perspective, everything is driven to the human being. I'm telling you, if you look at it, that's what you will find. It was designed that way. Well, how you could say that? Because the word tells us that. The word that we are reading in Genesis chapter 3. Well, where you see that? Well, if you read Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 28, you see God created man in his likeness, in his image, after his kind. That's what he did. Then if you read the portion that says, and he gave mankind dominion. Okay, so we have some kind of authority in this earth. Dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, over all the creeping things in the heavens, between the earth and the heavens. So we have dominion. We have authority. We have rulership. We have power, if you will. And that's a word that I want to get into in this session, hopefully. We have power over these things. In this atmosphere, we have power. Question, however, did we attain that power on our own? You who heal, you who lay hands on the sick, you who cast demons out, you who do all these wonderful miracles and whatever. Do you do these things because you can do them? That's just who you are. I say no. You do these things because it was given to you. It was given. Remember Yeshua? When he was in front of who? Pontius Pilate or Herod or one of them? He said, listen, man, I could call along a legion of angels, okay? That's who I am. This is what I could do. You think you have power over me? And to be really sarcastic, you think you, Herod or Pontius Pilate or whoever it was, you think you have power over me? Really? You have no such power outside that which is given. So all those prophets and apostles and evangelists and teachers and pastors out there who go about thinking they have power, the truth of the matter is they don't. From a grassroots basic level, they don't have power. But power was given. Listen, we don't have power because we are created. That which is created is only allowed what is given. Let me say it in a different way. If I create something, I have the authority, the power to do whatever I want to do with the thing that I create. See? And this is something we as human people, human beings, must understand. But there is a thought out there that, no, we are gods. We are in charge. We have power to create whatever we want. And unfortunately, that is an idea, that's an ideal, that's a thought that has not been put under the subjection to the Word of God, who is Yeshua. That idea, that ideal is not, it's been perpetrated out there in the world, in the universe, in the mind of humanity Since the garden. Since the event in the garden, it's been there. It's been lodged in the mind. And entities, human entities, have taken it up time and time again. And God keeps crying out to humanity, listen, if you continue to go that route, if you continue to follow that idea that you have all power, you will fail and fail miserably. And so throughout the eons of time, throughout the passage of time, God is perpetually giving human beings the opportunity to turn around, to turn back, to change their mind from following that path and come back to Him. And that's what this ministry is about. That is what we are talking about here. Coming back to God. Are you in or are you out? If you're in God, you got to go toward Him. Because anywhere else means you are outside and you are running away from Him. In Genesis 3 and 22, as a matter of fact, I hope you're following me. I hope you are following me. I hope you have your Bible in your hand, or your laptop, or your tablet, or whatever you followed, whatever you have the scripture on. I hope you have that. Because I don't want you to sit down listening to me. If you can open your Bible and read with me. Reading is important. You know, I work with kids. I don't care how awesome you are as a kid. If you can't read, you can't do math. You can't, worse yet, you can't do English, languages, or anything. If you can't read, chances are you can't do anything else. Because everything is based on reading. The ability to read. If you can't read, you cannot understand. That's why, go back to the old adage, reading is fundamental. Reading is foundational. So the most important thing in any school dealing with kids, is teaching kids how to read. That's just a little hint for the teachers out there. If you're a math teacher, your child is not going to be able to do math if they cannot read. Because a lot of math problems entail reading. Susie went to the store to buy food. She had $10 in her pocket. At the store, she bought 1 pound of sugar for $2.50. If you can't read that, you can't add $2.50 with a gallon of milk at $1.50. You cannot answer the question if the question is, how much change did Susie get back? You can't answer that question because you can't read the words. All right, so I'll give you enough time to get your Bible. I'll give you enough time to turn to Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3, verse 22, there's some fundamentally outlandish language. There's some fundamentally crazy language if you read it. And I use, if you have been around me, I use words that may not appropriately describe exactly what I'm saying. Like crazy language. What is crazy language? Well, let's read it. Genesis 3, verse 22. Then Yehovah Elohim said, this is God, Yehovah speaking, look, behold, the man has become like one of us. Let's stop right there. What does he mean? Wait a second. What happened to Genesis 1:26 and 27 and 28? Wasn't the man like one of us then? Think about it. Genesis 1:26 says, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. As a matter of fact, let's go and read that. Let's go read that. Genesis 1:26. God said, Elohim said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. I just read that. Let them have dominion. I just talked about that. Over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over the livestock, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. God gave us that dominion. He gave us. If you give something to somebody, you could take it back, can't you? Well, hopefully, maybe not, depending on what you give. And we're going to go into the extent of that dominion. We're going to go into the extent of that authority. We're going to go into the extent of that power, if you will. But God gave it of his own free will. We didn't ask for it because we had no idea we were going to be around anyway. We weren't responsible for us being here. He was. I want us to remember that. Don't listen to the foolishness from the brilliance of the scientist world who want to say that we just happen to be. You know, the world was around for billions and trillions of years, and the rocks and the mountains and the water began to shake and bake and quake, and poof, out came a human being as nice as you are, as beautiful and gorgeous as you look, young lady, and as handsome as you look, young fellow. Really? Oh, boy. Verse 27. God created man in his own image. In God's image, he created He created male and female. He created them. Verse 28, God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. God blessed us. God said to us, be fruitful. So if you are not being fruitful, then you're not living with the blessings of God. If you're not multiplying, you're not operating under the blessings of God. If you're not replenishing filling the earth, if you're not subduing the earth, you're not operating under the auspices of God. These are blessings. Have dominion over the fish of the sea. He goes back to that. Birds of the air, every living thing that moves on the earth. This is a blessing that was given to us. It was given. We didn't take it. We didn't ask for it. It was given. It's not a right. It's not, well, because I was born, I have the right to dominate the earth. No. It's a blessing. It's something that God said It's something that God wants. It's his heart. If you followed my teaching on matters of the heart, these things are in his heart. These are the things he wants done. And he has given all of his thoughts and ideas to us. So is it your thoughts and ideas? Is it your life? Is it your world? Okay. So here is the crux of the matter. This is the crux of the matter. Do you now? Did anybody here? Did anybody read? If those who were reading, anything about dominating other human beings? God is speaking to the human beings. He's speaking to himself, right? He is establishing what he wants, his heart, and he's saying to human beings, this is how you have to operate in the earth. I am allowing you, I am giving you this authority in the earth. And if you often hear me say, especially women who talk about, I don't want to have no children and this and that. Listen, hey, at the end of it all, you have to answer, not me. My advice, don't say that. Don't say that. You don't want no children. Well, is it, again, go back to the original question. Is it your life? Or is it God is trying to establish something in the earth? So your refusal to want to be part of that plan is a slap in God's face. And I listen, most people say these things without thinking about that. Without thinking about God. Without thinking that maybe God has a different plan. I get it. But that in itself doesn't make what you say saying it towards God. You're saying it against God. So you got to be careful, people. Again, we say things that sounds awesome. We say things that sounds powerful. But the end, is it towards God or is it against God? And that, my friends, is what is most important. Okay? And listen, I have a word, because like I said before, there are things happening in the world, okay? People are getting killed, people are getting mugged and brutalized, okay? From all different areas, all different sources. Let me just put this out there. Let me just say this. You who perpetrate evil, anybody, whoever is out in this universe that's perpetrating evil, God is coming for you. Okay? He is coming for you. Why? I'm reminded of the prayer that Solomon prayed when he became king. And when he fulfilled a desire that David had in his heart. See, David, who was a man after God's heart, who wanted to fulfill God's mission in the earth, God appointed David. God gave David the authority, the power, if you will, to be king. And so David was trying to fulfill this mission of God. Of course, he was a human being, so he wasn't perfect, and he made a ton of mistakes. I'm not giving him a pass. I'm just saying what God says. And when it was his time to go, David, in his heart, wanted to do something for God. And the idea was, I want to build God a house in the earth. And even God found that ambitious. Even God found that like, wow, you human being want to build me a house? Think about it. God found that really humorous, if you will. God says, I get it. I understand what's going on in you. Because it's not my desire. I can't even live in a house. A house too small for me, bro. Listen, I don't care how big the temple is. It's too small to hold this God. It's too small. But God understood the principle. God understood what he had in his heart. But because of the things David did, because of the way he lived his life, because of certain things that he was involved in, God was like, that's a good idea. That's I will allow that, but you can't do that for me, bro. And so God took that idea and gave it to Solomon. And because Solomon took this idea, Solomon fulfilled his mission. He went on this building scheme and he built this tremendous temple for God, a house. But in that, if you read the narrative, people, in Second Chronicles and in First Kings, when he dedicated the temple, when he dedicated the temple to Yehovah, he went extravagant, right? There was so much animal sacrifices. There was so much animals that were sacrificed in the dedication of the temple. Nobody knew how much it was. The ceremony went on for days, okay? And Solomon prayed a prayer. And I want people to go and read that prayer. The prayer itself is I wish we had humble people like that in the earth today. Unfortunately, we don't have many. But in the prayer, Solomon recognized how important human beings are to God. He recognized how important human beings are to God. And because he made that recognition, his prayer was geared along those lines. So he didn't ask for power. He didn't ask for money or wealth. He didn't ask for none of that. This is what he asked for: wisdom. Solomon understood the heart of God concerning humanity. And Solomon asked for the wisdom to guide God's people. That's what Solomon asked for. He was a king. He could have asked for horses and chariots and he would have gotten it. As a matter of fact, he still got it. But he got it because he recognized God's heart towards humanity. And he recognized that he had to have the same kind of thought pattern, the same kind of heart towards what he called God's people. He said, God's people, he said, your people are a great people. And because they are a great people, and because you are a great God, I'm paraphrasing, I want the wisdom to be able to lead them and to guide them and to instruct them properly. Because if I don't, I am going to suffer the consequences. So the word to the wise, the word to the people out there who's perpetrating evil against humanity. I don't care what level, what upper echelons of society you think you are. I don't care how much money you have in your bank account. I don't care if you're the president, the prime minister, if you're the king, if you're the senator. I don't care who you are. As a human being, if you perpetrate evil and injustice, if you perpetrate unmercifulness, if you will, is that a word, unmercifulness? If you perpetrate ideals and ideologies that's going against God, God is coming for you. He is coming, and he's promised he's coming for you. Not me. God is. And it doesn't matter if you believe that or not. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. As a matter of fact, the more you disbelieve it, is the more he's coming for you. And we have witnesses in the written narrative. We have witnesses in the Bible. Ask Nimrod. The world in the days of Nimrod was so united. Nimrod became like the Antichrist, the anti-Messiah of his time. And Nimrod and the people under him came to a decision. They're going to build a tower. They're going to build a tower up to the heavens. And everybody agreed. Could you imagine that? I don't know what was the population of the time of Nimrod. I don't know what the population was. But whether it was 2 billion, 100 million, or 10 people, didn't matter. But the narrative says everybody was in agreement. We're going to do that. And it was such an event. God decided, I need to go down there and check this out, boy. Wait a second. I got to go down there and check. You all know the story. God decided, I need to go down there and check this thing out. So if you think in 2021, December 2021, if you think God ain't interested in what's happening in the earth, guess what? You are dead wrong. You are dead wrong, sir, ma'am. This is his earth. He created it. He said it's his. It baffles me why we continue to think it's our world. Remind me of Mr. Smith in The Matrix. As a matter of fact, hey, Matrix 4 is coming out. I'm going to see it, y'all. Mr. Smith said, it's my world, it's my world, it's mine, it's mine. Reminds me, I think it's Daffy Duck in the cartoons. I think it's Daffy Duck. He said that. It's mine, it's all mine. Sir, ma'am, I'm sorry. My bad. I apologize. It's not your world. I don't care who you are. It's not your world. It's not your world. And the sooner you get that through your, as the old folks say, your thick skull, the sooner you get that through your thick skull, that's what old folks used to say. Boy, the sooner you understand, the sooner you get that through your thick head, is the better it will be for you. It's not my world. It's not your world. It's not the elite's world, the richest people in the world. It's not your world. This is God's world. He created it. It's His. And you either understand that and flow in that, or you become like Nimrod. God, it was good. God said, I gotta go down there and check this out. He went down, he checked it out. He was like, this is God. God says, go read it in Genesis 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, somewhere there. What did God say? Oh boy, this is serious. If I don't do something, God said, if He doesn't do something, the people will accomplish the thing they put their mind to. And so God confused their language. Well, wait a second. I thought in the letters, in the new, the back of the book, the narrative, I thought they said God is not the author of confusion. Oh boy. We in for a time here today, huh? Ain't an hour yet. And you already starting to do this kind of thing. I thought the letter said God is not the author of confusion. But in Genesis, God said, I got to do something. And God caused confusion. He confused their language. He confused their understanding of their language. And all of a sudden, people who was all in one accord yesterday became confused today. All of a sudden, the person who I said good morning to yesterday, when I said good morning to them today, they didn't know what that meant. They had no, what? What? Good what? Good morning? What is that? But, come on, John, I said that to you yesterday. It's morning time. I came out, I saw you, it's morning time. I said, good morning. I don't understand. What is so good about the morning? What is so good about the day? The day is not a good day. It's cloudy outside, the rain falling. It's not a good day. All of a sudden, the people who were in one accord yesterday is totally confused the next moment, the next day. That's because God did that. And the Tower of Babel became no more. Oh, you want another? What about Pharaoh? What about Pharaoh? He was the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh of Egypt, in control of a whole country, in control of, he was a superpower in his time. And he had people in slavery. Pharaoh did. What? Pharaoh was maybe a black man? Most people would think he was of color. Oh, Pharaoh, a man of color, had slaves. Wow. Think about that for a minute. And the slaves he had belonged to somebody else. The people he had as slaves, God decided, wait a second, that was not your people. See, I told you, nothing is yours. Nothing is mine. Everything belongs to him. A cattle on 1,000 hills is his own. The world is mine. The earth is mine, saith the Lord, and all who dwell therein. These are not my words. Pharaoh thought they were his people, they were his slaves to do what he wills. God had a different story. God had a different attitude. God said, no, Pharaoh, they're not your people. They're not your, as a matter of fact, I am going to deliver them from your hand. And I'm going to use you. You think you have all power? You think you God? Okay, I'm going to show you who is God. I'm going to show you who the real God is. Listen, if you understand the story, any leader, any world leader, please, somebody give this to Biden and what's the man? Any leader you know, copy and send it to them. Listen, you are not in charge. Because the more you think you are in charge, the more you think that you're going to do what you want to do, the less it happens. You have to be willing to humble yourself, understand the power, the authority that you have. It was given to you. It can be taken from you. As a matter of fact, it is written in the biblical narrative, God is the one who sets up and God is the one who tears down. It's his world. It's his people. Every single human being belongs to him, whether they're doing good or they're doing bad. And it's up to him to decide what he's going to do with people. It's not up to me. So, Pharaoh, who thinks he's a god, who understands he's a king, who understands that he's a ruler, see, those are things, yeah, you want to understand who you are, but you want to understand who you are in context to who he is. And if you don't believe in him, you're in trouble because you will believe in something. You have to believe in something. You don't, listen, that's not even a choice because you were created that way. You, me, every human being in the face of this universe, every 8 point whatever billion of us were designed to believe something. Whether you believe there is a God, whether you believe that there is one God or a plethora of gods, whether you believe there is no God, whether you believe you are the God, I am the God, he is the God, she is the goddess, doesn't matter what you believe. My point is, you believe something. And you have to believe something. I dare you to just don't believe nothing. I dare you to do that. See, we human beings have become so smart that we fooled our own selves. I'm reminded of the book of Romans, in that letter that Paul wrote to the Romans. He said, God used the foolish things of the world to confound those who think they're wise. He used the foolish things. Think about it for a second. We have people who claim to be wise in every field of society, who think they want to, who say all these wonderful, awesome things. And if those things are not in tune with what God wants and with what God says, Those people are foolish. And God is going to show them out. God is going to expose them for the foolishness that they perpetrate. And I'm warning each and every single one of us who are living today. No, you can't play God. Play in terms of, the colloquial way that we use the word play. You can't play me. You can't fool me. You can't deceive me. God cannot be mocked. For whatsoever a man sow, that shall he also reap. People call it karma. People call it payback. Call it what you want. Oh, boy. Call it what you want. If you sow evil, guess what, Bob, baby? It's coming right back at you. If you sow wickedness, it's coming right back at you. If you sow nastiness, ungodliness, deceit, whatever you sow, the tree is coming. That tree is coming for you. So, what is God? We're going back to Genesis 3 and 22. What did God mean when he said, hey, guys, peoples, angels, hey, Satan, hey, look, I told you, I made them like us. I present to you mankind who will now become like us. Why? Because now they know good and evil. So what did they know before? He said in Isaiah, God, I create evil. I create the smith who blows the coals in the fire, who creates a weapon for use. Listen, God is involved in every phase of life. Don't be like the people in Romans 9 who says to Paul, well, if God knows, if Yehovah knows that I am going to do evil, why is he yet upset when I do evil? God, why are you mad? You know what Paul's answer is? Why? You can't talk back to God. See, what Paul is saying is, we think, listen, human beings, humanity, certain segments of humanity believe that we hold the power in our hands, that it is up to us, that we have the authority, that we wield all power. We do not, sir and ma'am and child and girl and little boy, we do not wield no such power except that which is given. But God urges us to use that which is given for his glory. He urges us to use that which is given for him in his stead, so that his name will be known. Not your name, his name. See, and Pharaoh thought he was God. Pharaoh thought he was king. Pharaoh thinks, hey, I am in charge here. And he was to a certain degree. But when it comes to what God wanted, sorry, Pharaoh, what you want doesn't matter. So once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, Pharaoh tried and tried and tried. And what happened in the end? Who lost that battle? You know the story. See, and you think, oh, that's just a story. That never happened. That ain't real. Okay. And you just press on. You just continue to perpetrate whatever you want to perpetrate. You see? Okay. I'm just telling you like it is. You don't want to listen? Hey, have at it, bro. Sis, just keep going and see how it'll end up for you. See how it'll end up for you. The number one thought, right? When it comes to people who drink, who smoke weed, who do things that they know. Listen, if you take a drink of alcohol, you know what you're doing. You know that it will. I was telling a friend of mine some months ago. He was talking about alcohol and being drunk and doing things that he don't normally do. And I said to him, I said, that's why they call that spirits, right? That's why they call alcohol spirits. Because when you drink it, the chances are, depending on how much you drink, it comes with another spirit. It turns you into another spirit. Another spirit comes out to you. A spirit that you may not know that you had. And that spirit manifests itself in all kinds of ways. Because when people drunk, they do all kinds of things. When people under the influence of drugs, they do things that they don't normally do. And the number one thought, or one of the biggest thoughts in the mind of people who drink and smoke and do things is, oh, I'm in control of that. Listen. The number one thought in the mind of people who are in those situations is, I'm in control. And they keep deceiving themselves into thinking they are in control, and they are not. That's why the number one thing, the number one ideal, the number one thought in how you overcome an addiction is admitting that you are out of control. Listen, it's so simple, people. Alcoholics Anonymous, that's the first thing. If you can't admit that you're an alcoholic, if you can't admit that, then how can you be helped? Because when you admit that you are an alcoholic, you are saying that the alcohol controls you. So you are humbling yourself to that truth. What did Yeshua say about the truth? Listen, people. Please hear what the Spirit of Yehovah is saying to us today. You are humbling yourself to that truth that you are not in control. The alcohol is, or the drugs are, or whatever it is that has you captive. You're admitting, I am no longer in control. The thing is. And when you could get to that place of humility, in the real sense, not fake humility now, in the real sense of really humbling yourself to that point, that's when you can start to recover. That's when you can start to overcome. Yeshua said, and you shall know the truth. And that truth is what sets you free. The truth. If you cannot humble yourself to say to yourself and to everybody, if you keep thinking you're in control, that thing will keep dominating you until you lose. So, Pharaoh finally got the message. The unfortunate thing was, he died getting it. You know? And it doesn't please God to have to take you out. God suffers long. He endures our foolishness. Not just yours, but mine too. He endures it because he wants us to come to a point where we understand, oh wow, yeah, you're right, you know, God, this is, if I don't do it your way, I can't win. You have to come to that point. I have to come to that point. There is no victory for us. How did Yeshua how was he able to be resurrected? He didn't resurrect himself. He had to be resurrected. Who resurrected him? Father. Why was the Father compelled or moved to resurrect him? Why? Paul tells us in Philippians, because he was obedient even unto death. God doesn't care about your sacrifices. He doesn't care about what he wants is your obedience. I require obedience, not sacrifice. You could ask Solomon sacrificed, thousands and thousands and thousands of sheep and goats and cattle when he dedicated the temple. You think when he married 1,000 women, and you think when God was executing punishment, you think God looked at those sacrifices and say, hey, you know what, you kill all them animals for me, man, I gotta let you slide. No, God didn't do that. Because when you disobey is when you die. This is the same thing here. But why did God say, now the man has become like one of us? Why did he have to say that? Because the man, what did he say? The man now knows what's good and evil. So he didn't know what was good and evil before. He didn't know what was good and evil before. Right? He didn't know it. God made him in his image. Wasn't he supposed to know? Well, what was the guidance for him to know what good and evil was? See? If we don't follow guidance, see, is in being obedient, is in following that guidance that he had. Following that would have put him in a better place. And that's what God wanted. God wanted him to listen, I made you like me. Yeah, you're supposed to know what's good and evil, but not by being disobedient. You're supposed to know what's good and evil by being obedient. Because if you follow my instructions is good. So you have good. You know what good is. See? God said to him, of every tree that's in the garden, you can eat. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall not eat. So the guidance to the man and the woman was, don't eat from that tree. Listen to me. Follow what I say. Do what I say, and it will be well with you. Because you're young. You're not born. You know. You're not born. I just created you, so you're young. And there's things you don't understand quite yet. See, there's a difference. See, when we look at knowledge comes in different, in three forms, like if I could say that. There is knowing, there is understanding, and there is the wisdom to know and understand things. So knowing isn't everything. Okay? Because you could know everything. But if you don't understand what you know, you run into a serious problem. It's simple. Listen, a mechanic has got to understand what he knows. A doctor has got to understand what he knows. If they don't understand what they know, they won't have the wisdom to figure things out. And you know how doctors figure things out? Most times it's by trial and error. So when we think scientists know stuff, they know stuff. And how they get understanding and wisdom is by trial and error, is by trying out things. Oh boy. We are in a predicament because scientists are looked at as if they know everything. They are looked at as the guidance in society. And they're not. That's not their role. But they have taken that role, most of them, upon themselves. And they think that they're the ones who will lead humanity in the right direction. But mark my words, without following instruction, they can't do it. Instruction, I'm talking about God's instruction. You can do nothing without God's instruction. Outside of his instruction, you build in your own world. You build in your own society. You build in your own tower. And we know what happened to the Tower of Babel. We know what happened to that tower. We know what happened to the tower. Why? Because they thought that they had the rule of mankind. They thought they know how to do things. They wasn't looking to anybody else but themselves. So the man here thinks that he has attained God, what's that? Godship. Because he knows good from evil. I think God he can be really sarcastic if you look at it. And in this verse here, God is saying some things that we probably need to look at. There's some innuendo here. There is some sarcasm here. There is some things here that is being said to us that we must understand. Could it be read, oh, no, you think you're like us because you know good and evil? Is God asking a question here? Because God knows that he created us. Like him, he knows what he created. And in the condition that the man and the woman was in at that moment, maybe they thought, hey, we just got over on God. I want you to follow me. Maybe they thought that they just got over on him. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they recognized that, gosh, no, we had to be afraid. Remember what the man said when God came calling? We were afraid and we hid ourselves because we were naked. And God said, wait a second, your language has changed. Me and you was talking yesterday, and we didn't talk about all this stuff about you being naked and you feel a sense of shame and now you want to hide from me. Who told you? Who told you were naked? And so I believe when God says here in 22, Genesis 3 and 22, that now the man has become like one of us, knowing good from evil. I think God is kind of being a little, like Paul says, let me speak foolishly. It's like being sarcastic. It's like, I remember, I'm going off on a little tangent here. I remember years ago, I was in Miami. And I was working at a ministry. And I remember one morning in prayer, I was praying, and God said to me, I want you to go and join the men's ministry. Because the pastor over the men's ministry need help. So my response was, okay. Listen, I'm not trying to tell you that I was a goody two shoes. I'm just telling you what happened. That was my response. Okay. And I went to work that morning, and when the pastor came in, the men's ministry pastor, I went to his office. I knocked. I asked him if I could speak to him for a moment. He invited me, and I sat down, and I told him, hey, I want to join the men's ministry because, I want to help you. And he was like glad, elated. And we went on, those of us who were part of the men's ministry, to do some awesome things, And then I can't remember how long after, maybe 2 years, maybe 3. I can't remember. I don't measure things. You know what I'm saying? Sometime after, I went to work, and the opposite happened. When the pastor got there, he called me into his office, right? Which to me was normal, because that's what we do when we're trying to organize some men's event or something like that. So I went into his office and we sat down. He closed his door. I was like, okay. And he started off saying to me, he said, listen, I wanted to let you know what's going on. I said, okay. First thing he said was, I'm stepping down. I was like, okay, this is not going, this is interesting. And he said that he had a talk with the bishop, and he was kind of like going really slow. And so kind of like what I'm doing now. And I told the bishop that I would recommend that you take over. So I'm sitting in a chair, and, obviously he started off in a direction that I was like, okay, so we dismantling the men's ministry or whatever, And then he said, what I just said, he said about, he went to the bishop and told the bishop, that he recommended that I take over the men's ministry. And I'm sitting there like, huh? And he said that bishop agreed. Bishop said, okay, that's a good idea. And he said, so it's up to you. What do you say? And I remember sitting there kind of like really stunned, because in moments I never saw that coming. I didn't. I never thought. I didn't think about that. Never did. The moment when God told me to go join the men's ministry, even up to the moment and sitting in the chair years after, hearing what the pastor is saying to me, I never thought, oh, I want to be over the men's ministry. I never thought like that. So when he said it to me, I was stunned. I was... And then God said, go for it. I'm with you. And I told him, okay, I could do that. And it was an interesting moment, you know. And I left his office, and I remember a period of just, just dealing with God from that perspective. And when I said dealing with God, it was a lot of innuendo, It was a lot of innuendo in my hearing. God would say to me, "Oh, so you're the head of the men's ministry now, huh?" Just like that. I would hear these things ringing in my ears. I would hear it in my spirit. I would hear it in my mind. It wasn't direct questioning. It wasn't direct statements. It was innuendo. God was saying, that's how he was speaking. So you're the man now, huh? Like that, like how anybody else would speak to you, seeing you in a position and kind of not mocking you, but kind of, I don't know how to describe it. But I know what I heard, and I know I heard it. It was constant over and over again. And it wasn't to embarrass me. It wasn't to chastise me. It wasn't to swell my head or anything like that. What it did, however, it made me think, right? The things God said to me made me think about what he said to me. And so when he said, so he said to me, "So you're the man now, huh?" I was like, "Why are you messing with me? Why are you messing with me, Father?" And then he would be like, "So what does it mean? What does it mean to be a man?" Yeah, and that idea would begin to what we call mushroom, or what we call start like a small snowball and then begin to roll down the hill and begin to get bigger and bigger. And that led me into really looking at myself as a male, looking at myself as a man, and it was phenomenal. If you could just, I don't want to go into it because it will take up it could go on for hours, but just that little thought about, so you're the man now, huh? Do you know what it means? Have you ever thought about you being a man? Have you ever thought about what it is? Why did I make you a male? Why were you born male? And all these questions begin to, through innuendo, through that innuendic, there I go again, creating another word. If there is such a word, through that innuendic, rhetoric, questioning. And that's what I believe God is doing here. He's not saying that the man has all of a sudden they now become like one of us. No, that's not what he's saying. He's being a little sarcastic, if you will. He's being a little rhetoric, if you will. He's being a little innuendic, if you will. I like that word. I just love it. There's some innuendo here. But if we read what he says, if we understand what the man believed that he heard in the let's go back to the Genesis 3. If you go back to the beginning of Genesis 3, because remember the woman was told, oh, God don't want you to eat from that tree because he knows the day you eat from it, you will become like him. You will become God. But wait a second. That could not be true because God said in Genesis 1:26, let us make man like us. So you understand that what the other side is saying is not true. She was deceived, like Peter said. It was the woman who was deceived. The deception was not that you would be like God. The deception was you don't have to do it the way God wants it done. You could do it your own way. You can go your own way. That was what the serpent wanted. That's the idea. He wanted you to be disobedient. And God wants you to be obedient. So when he says in 22 that now the man has become like one of us, he's not making a prophetic statement as if the man wasn't like him before. He's making a sarcastic statement. He's been rhetoric. He's been innuendic. Because he wants the man to understand, I made you like me from the get-go. You didn't have to do anything different. But you were disobedient. And guess what? God does not desire. Your disobedience is not satisfactory to God. And so now you think you are God. Now you think you're bigger than all of that. Now you think you're in a position of authority. You're not, because I am still in control. Now I will show you who is in control. I curse the ground from where you come. I tell you, you're going to go back to that ground, because for dust you are, and from dust you will go back. And on top of that, now I am forbidding you from being even in the garden. So, with all the authority that you think you have gotten from being disobedient, I want you to know you are no better than you are before. Now, everything you gain, everything you do, you will have to work hard for it. Why? Because before, you got everything free. Before, I made everything and I gave it to you. I created everything and I gave it to you. Down to the woman you have who you call wife. And then I took you and I told you, take care of, serve my creation with my authority. Take care of my creation with the authority that I give to you. And I showed you the kind of authority you have when I put you in front of the animals and I said to you, name them. And guess what you did, man? You just named them. Guess what I did when you named them? I said, okay. Now, for your disobedience, you think you have power, but you don't. You think you have authority, but you do not. Now I'm putting you out the house. You can't live in my house if you don't obey my rules. It's something that parents tell their kids all the time. I used to tell my kids all the time. It's not a matter of bragging or boasting or being harsh with the kids. That's not the point. The point is it's a principle. You live in my house, you have to obey my rules. If you go in somebody else's house, guess what? You can't go in somebody else's house and do what you want to do. If that person in that house, the person in charge, the person who runs that house, if they have certain rules and you don't want to abide by it, they could put you out too. And I've said before, every entity in society, every aspect of life, every thought, everything, in everything, there are rules, laws, principles that you have to abide by, even if you don't want to. So when I say to my kids, this is my house, this is my rules. If you don't want to abide by my rules, then you have to go build your own house, have your own rules, and abide by those rules. But guess what? You're going to be abiding by your own rules anyhow. It's still rules. It's still law. So as we have been taught for centuries, that now we are no longer under the law, that's a lie. I don't care even if Paul says it. I don't believe that's what he means, but if you believe that you don't operate under the law, then you are believing a lie. Because every aspect of life are ruled by laws and principles and governed under them. You could ask gravity how he feels about you jumping off the roof of the house. I want you to climb up on your house, whether it's high or low, it doesn't matter. And I want you to tell gravity, listen, I am jumping down and I don't care what you say. You can't prevent me from doing it. Gravity not going to prevent you from doing it. Or vice versa. You cannot go up in the house and tell gravity, I don't want to fall down. I want to fall up. And when I jump, I want you to carry me up. Gravity will laugh at you, ma'am, sir. And you will fall and probably hurt yourself every time you do it. And my son used to argue with me, my scientific son. Well, Dad, we have satellites in the sky and they all, okay. The satellites operating by the rules and principles and laws that govern the atmosphere where they are. Okay? And gravity may not have anything to say about it now. But sooner or later, remember, nothing is forever. The only thing that's forever is Him. And if you're not in Him, guess what? So, God is making this statement. Listen, you think that you can be a God on your own. Because that's what the serpent told you. That's what you think. I'm going to show you who I am. Just like he did to Pharaoh, just like he did to Nimrod, just like he did to everybody else who tried to withstand him, who tried to do their own thing. That includes David, Saul, Solomon. It doesn't matter who you are. The only person who did exactly what he was supposed to do every time, according to the will and purpose of his Father, is Yeshua. That's the only human being alive who ever lived, who did it the right way. And as Paul told the church in Philippi, the Philippian church, he did it to the point of death. He did it to the point of dying. He did it to the point of his life being taken from him. In quotes, I said. I would put that in air quotes. Because his life wasn't taken. He gave it. In spite of the truth that he spoke to Herod, or not Nimrod, I'm going to say Nimrod, Pontius Pilate, you have no power over me, bruh. The power you have over me is the power that was given to you. See, we forget these little things. And then the statement could be made, oh, death, where is your sting? I thought you sting hard. Oh, grave, where is your hold? See what I'm saying? So what God is saying here to us, the man, the human beings, is, you didn't want to do it my way? You can't live in my house. You can't eat my good food. I'm putting you out the house, and I'm not just putting you out the house, but I'm setting guards. I'm putting a guard to guard the gate, so that you don't get the idea that you could just waltz back up in here in the condition you're in and start to eat my good food. Read it. Genesis 3:22 says, so you're a man like one of us now, huh? Knowing good and evil. Now, lest you reach out your hand and also take of the tree of life and eat and live forever, I'm putting you out. See, we have to understand we're going to live forever. So there's got to be innuendo here. There has got to be sarcasm here. And the point is that you can't live forever in the condition you're in, son. You can't sit in the pig pen eating that crap and enjoy it. That's not how I created you. That's not what I created you for. So even though you demanded your inheritance, even though I allowed you to take it and run wild with it and do what you want with it, you're going to have to come to the point where you're going to have to see where you are. You're going to have to know the condition that you are in. But the one thing that you will always know is, this is not where you belong. You belong in a different place. But when you're ready to come back, you cannot come back in the same condition that you are in the pig pen. You have to come back to me in a different way. You have to come back to me with a different mindset. You have to come back to me with a different perception. You have to come back to me in a different perspective. And like I said, same principle, whether you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict, you're a sex addict, regardless of what has control over you, you cannot return to him unless you sit in the position you are in, look at the position that you are in, and say to yourself, I don't belong here. I want to go back home. Humble yourself and say, God, I'm sorry. I have forsaken you. I have forsaken your rule. I thought I could do it on my own. I realize I cannot. Without you, I can do nothing. Even if I want to do something, I can't do it without you. So, I want to come back, and I don't care if you don't call me a son. I don't care if you don't give me a robe. I don't care if you don't put a ring on my finger. Matter of fact, when I come back, all I want to do is to serve. I just want to serve you. I just want to serve your people. I want to serve your dog. I want to serve your cat. I just want to serve something that belongs to you. See? And so, outside of that thought, you can come back. Ain't no coming back talking about, I'm a son. I want my rights. I want my cloak and my coat and my ring and my earring and my hat and my robe. No. No. Can't do that. Can't do that. And so, with that, I want to close this section, this segment of this teaching. Are you in? Or are you out? If you're in, understand. There's certain things you got to know when you're in. You got to know it's not about you. You got to know that it's not that you're worthy. You got to know is that you have to recognize who he is. It's not your world. It's not your life. It's not your goals and ideals and ideologies. It's not about you. It's about him. And if it's your intention to do it his way, you got to know that. You got to say to yourself, I want to do it his way. His way is better. Because if it's not his way, I don't care how much money you have. It's the end is what's important. How is it going to end for you? Are you going to be like Pharaoh or are you going to be like Enoch? Are you going to be like Noah, Abraham? Are you going to be like that or are you going to be in the annals of Nimrod and Saul and Eli and the rest, who insist on doing it their way. This is what we believe at the Handwriting of Yehovah Ministries. This is what we believe at the Voice in the Wilderness. This is what we preach, and this is what we teach. And let me repeat, if you are out there, if you live in the upper echelons of society, if you're a multi-millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire, thousandaire, 100-year, if you're a superstar, movie star, a sports star, if you perpetrate wickedness and evil, if you perpetrate those things, and I'm not talking about wickedness and evil according to how you see it. But if the things you do, you take bribes, you who do evil against humanity, take heed. Take heed. In closing, we will do as we always do, or we always like to do. Turn in your Bibles to Genesis 6, 22 through 27. The next session, I was hoping to really go into, talk about this power that we say we have, this power that we think we have, and this ideal, this ideology that, we human beings, we in charge, we in control. I want to challenge you on that. You're not in charge and you're not in control. Okay? And time again, God shows us. He shows each and every one of us. Listen, I can take you out. I can put you up. I can bring you down. I can have you left. I can send you right. I'm in control. It's my world. I created it. Not me. Not I as in I, Maxi. I as in I, Yehovah, Tevaoth. Numbers 6 and 22 says as follows. Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, This is how you shall bless the children of Israel. You shall tell them, Yehovah bless you and keep you. Yehovah make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yehovah lift up his countenance towards you and give you peace. So they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Until next time, Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, Buen Nuit. Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, adios, arrivederci, deuces, peace, much love. Bye.